Hey there, Ryan Falkenrath here, Triathlon.com, and if you're watching this video, congratulations, because you want to hear about 70.3 Des Moines. Now, I just got done doing the race this past weekend, recovered from my experience, got a little bit dehydrated on the run, but overall, I just want to kind of do a 2,000 foot, 10,000 foot view, whatever level you want to be at. Not necessarily my experience, but the event itself and kind of the experience of the event, if you're looking to do it, or maybe you did it and you're looking to maybe improve the situation, and kind of maybe hear a little bit about my background about the experience and what I think as far as athletes, what we can do to kind of be a little bit more efficient and a little bit more proactive about doing the event. So what I want to start off with is, like I said, kind of my experience. I live in Kansas City, which is about a 3.5 hour drive. So for me, this was a race I put on my radar, originally in 2020, like most other people, and COVID and the pandemic had other plans, so here it is, 2021, and I've done the race now, and just kind of want to go over a few different things. There's lots of conversation to be had about the setup and the situation, and kind of what happened on race day. A little bit of Mother Nature stepped in again and did some things that we had to kind of work with, but as athletes, we kind of made it happen, and I think in the end, we all got the race done, and we're all better for it. But my personal experience, I could have done better, but, that's just me. But, hey, let's talk about the overall experience. So I'm going to start off looking at the venue on Google Maps here and get you kind of squared away where everything was at. So this right here is Grays Lake. So this is where the swim happens. Go over here. This is where transition is, over by the Waterworks Park in the amphitheater. That big grass field where all the bikes were. So basically you start to swim here on the beach, kind of do a little loop-de-loop, you come in transition, come over here, and you ride your bikes, and you hit the highway. But the thing you want to keep in mind here is a lot of events have Ironman Village and kind of the finish area and transition area kind of localized in the same area. Now there's some races that have two transitions. Now this one had one transition, but the finish line, the swim start and the finish line area were kind of in different spots, and they kind of had to do a few different logistical things to get you back into one place with all your stuff, which they provided options. It's not like they just kind of dropped you off somewhere at the finish line and said good luck. They found a way to get us all back there, but you had to be prepared. I mean, you had to go through and do your homework to make sure that you had everything squared away so you can have all your stuff in one spot and be ready to go. So the thing that was kind of talked about a lot was right over here is Cowles Common, and that is where they set up Ironman Village and the finish line. As you'll notice, it's quite a bit of ways from transition area and the swim start. So this right here, it's about 2.2 miles, I think, is what somebody clocked in at, something like that. There's tons of little trails and stuff that you can kind of, if you wanted to walk, you could. When I came in to do my check-in, I drove over and parked downtown, and if you watch any of my videos or anything, when I came in on Saturday, they were having a farmer's market, so all these roads were kind of full and blocked off, so I kind of had to park over, I forget where I parked over, some little parking lot over here, and I had to walk over. It wasn't the end of the world, and luckily it wasn't too hot. The buildings provided some shade, but it was in the 90s, which is unusual for that time of year. I mean, if you go back and look at the Des Moines website, average air temperature at that time of year is around 71 degrees. Now, we are in a weird little heat wave situation, so when we got there, it was in the 90s, and it had been in the hundreds earlier in the week, so typically this lake probably would be wetsuit legal most years, and it was wetsuit optional. I think it was 78.3 degrees on race day. So just be aware that what happened in 21 is going to probably be hopefully a little bit different that happens in the future. You never know with the way things are going with nature, but who knows. But just be aware. You come in here, you're coming in downtown, there may be other things going on, so I had to park and walk, or you have to be creative about finding a parking garage, because it was busy. Now, if you had reservations, pandemic and everything like that, Iowa was fully open. People were walking around, but it was weird. Some restaurants, the dining room areas were closed. But you walk downtown in an open air market, I mean, it was wall-to-wall people. So if you were having a little bit of hesitation about that, it might have caused some problems, but excuse me, if you find a place to park and you got to Cows Commons, that's where check-in was, that's where the village tents were, that's where the Ironman merchandise store was. So this is basically where everything's kind of going on. But meanwhile, you've got the transition area that's down here. So once you check in, you get all your stuff, your stickers and all that. So if you brought it all with you and you want to do it the same day, that's fine. You just kind of load up and you're gonna have to more likely drive back unless you want to ride a bike on the trail system, drop it off and walk back or something. And there's plenty of hotels down here downtown. So I kind of stayed a little bit south. So I was kind of south a little bit. I was kind of across from the airport. So I had a little bit of a drive. So I pretty much had to drive everywhere, which wasn't a big deal. You know, most of it was a 10-minute drive. Not that big of a deal. But it is a little bit spread out. So just be prepared for that. That there's where Ironman Village was. That's where check-in is. That's where the finish line was. And this is where transition is going to happen. So that's a little bit of a distance, and a little bit of driving around and stuff. But like I said, Des Moines, it's not super spread out, and it's not that difficult. So it was maybe a 10-minute drive to get, from getting in your car to driving to another spot and getting out of your car. It's not the end of the world, but do be aware they did have this Bell Avenue Business Center where they had the parking. So that was actually park there and then walk your bike down the transition. Now, it's probably a good 15-minute walk just to walk your bike down. So be ready for that. They do provide parking, and they don't want you parking back here on the side of the road stuff because there's houses and people living back here in businesses. They don't want you parking in there. So they're going to provide this parking area, but it's going to be a hike to get your stuff. And that's where they want you parking on race day. So I'll foreshadow a little tidbit that'll kind of save you on that one. But if you're going to do this race, just be prepared on race morning that you're going to have a 15 to 20 minute walk to get from your car to the transition to get everything set up, and then they're going to walk you over to the swim start, which is probably another 10 or 15 minutes to walk you through a little tunnel that goes underneath the road and walks you over to the swim start. So this is what probably you'll hear the most about, is people talking about the logistics of walking here and walking there once you're parked. But for race day, if you want to spend the extra money, you can buy VIP parking, and that I being an Ironman certified coach, I was able to get in for VIP. The main thing that was most beneficial for me was the parking. You can park right here at Waterworks Park. There's a little parking lot here, and you park and you walk over a little berm, and there you are. I'm going to be having a video out on that, just kind of give you a little bit of information on my VIP experience. Basically, that was the main thing I used it for. So if parking is important to you and you want to pay a little bit of a premium for that parking, you can get right up here and walk right over to transition on race morning. So here's what happened. So that's a kind of check-in experience. You check in, you're going to have to do it over at Cows Commons, get all your stuff, do your shopping and whatever. So you go over here, and then when you want to drop your bike off, you're going to have to come park over here and then walk at 15, 20 minutes over here. VIP, you cannot park over here to do your check-in and drop off and stuff. So just beware, just be ready. There's going to be a lot of walking as far as checking in and doing stuff, and a little bit of hiking around to get stuff done. But it's not excessive. No more than 10 minutes to drive anywhere, and parking wasn't a big problem, so I wouldn't be too worried about that, but just be prepared. So we'll kind of fast forward to race morning 2021. They had a storm rolling in, so the night before they actually pushed back the start of the race, and they were going to have us check in, or start, they were going to open transition at 7 a.m. and have us out by 7:30 to start the swim, which is usually they're open at 4:30, and usually they're starting the races like 6:40 or 7. So that was going to be a rush. Turns out that some storms rolled in, and they pushed us back to the actual swim start for, I think the professionals was at 9:40 a.m. So they opened up transition at 8:45. Actually, they opened up a little bit before, so people got there a little bit early. They weren't really been out of shape, and they were letting people in. But man, you get in there, you didn't have time to pedal fart around. You get in there, you get your stuff checked in and whatever, and then you listen for the swim start times, and they take you from the transition area, and they walk you down the little, there's a little tunnel section that goes right underneath here, so they walk you down these little paths, walk you in underneath the tunnel, and then down these paths to the swim start. So it is a bit of a hike, so be ready. If you want to wear They had a bin. You could put your flip-flops or disposable water shoes or anything you wanted to bring. Just be ready. When you get there race morning, this is where you're going to be parking unless you're doing VIP. You're going to walk down here 15 or 20 minutes, get your stuff ready, and you're going to walk out with the swim groups. And that's probably going to be another 10 to 15 minutes. So you can't wait till the last minute on this one. You don't want to be running around, sprinting around on concrete and risk a slip or a trip or something like that, or mess up your feet, running, step on a rock or something goofy. So just be prepared that there is going to be on race morning to give yourself a little bit extra time. There's no shelves or anything to mess with, but there's a lot of walking around. So, at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal, but just make sure you're prepared. You got your fluids, you got your nutrition, and just make sure that you're prepared. There's no morning gear bag, so whatever you bring to the swim start, you're leaving it there if you don't take it with you on the swim. So food, hydration, anything you got on you. If you want to save your shoes, then you better have a Sherpa or a spectator to hand it off to you. And that was convenient. I mean, they had plenty of areas for spectators and stuff, so you have people with you who can hand it off. It's not that big of a deal. So there's plenty of room here. It's not that secluded. People can park over here in parking lots and walk through trails and stuff. So for spectators, and I'll make a separate video about spectators, there's plenty of opportunities for spectating here, especially at the swim start. But just be ready. There's a lot of moving parts and logistics. There's going to be a lot of walking that you may not typically be used to for a 70.3. Especially, it's a one transition. So it's kind of deceptive in, it's one transition, but the swim start and the finish line are different places. So just be ready for that. It's a little bit different, but, that's every race is not the same. But I think they did. I mean, if you want a race where they're bound and determined to have a race, I think the race directors did a great job. They postponed the start for about 2 hours, 3 hours almost, and they still got a full swim in. They cut the bike in half. So if you look at the course, there's the swim. So you come out and you basically swim the whole length of the lake here, and you swim out. Now people, they did time trial start, so every 4 minutes or every 5 seconds they let 4 people go. So there's somebody there that said go, will it go, will it go. It's pretty much wall-to-wall people the entire swim. It really did not, I very rarely got an opportunity where I was swimming in open water by myself. So just be prepared. A lot of people came out. There's contact in this swim. Just be ready for that. It's not the end of the world. It's not rough waters. It's a little bitty lake. It's not crazy. But just be prepared that you're probably going to get smacked around a little bit. And if you don't want to get smacked around, you need to swim wide of these buoys and stay away from the turns, because that's where everybody bottlenecked and got into each other. So just be ready. If contact's not what you want in the water, you need to stay wide on this one. And they had you line up according to your swim times. I think some people were just wanting to get in the water as soon as possible. It's wetsuit optional, so the wetsuits were at the back. But try to seed yourself. It's obvious where people are going to be faster, where they're not. Just try to seed yourself in the right spot, or else you're going to get swam over, or you're going to have to swim through a lot of people. Just be ready for that. So when they did do the bike, they shortened it and basically made it half the distance. So this would have been the full bike course. So you come out here, do some U-turns and all kinds of fun stuff out here. Well, the actual bike, this is my Garmin thing. Basically, you just came through, did this little loop to the park, and then came through on the highway, did a U-turn and come back. So it was about 27.3 miles. Instead of, they cut out this portion, they cut out this little U-turn here, and they cut out this U-turn. So it's 27.3 miles, and they had to come back. It's not the end of the world, and they did what they could with permits, but then they had the full 13.1 mile run. So I think all things considered, everybody got a triathlon. It was a little bit shortened. They did as best they could, I think, under the conditions, and they actually timed it right. You look at the forecast and it looked like storms were rolling in, but they did it right, and no rain, no nothing. It dried up. The bike course, as soon as we got out there, probably like 10, 15 minutes into it, it dried up, and there's no problems out there. Now, the one problem did come up because, as I said, with the average air temperature of 71 degrees, it got to about 93 degrees on the run. So, if you take into account, if a normal 70.3 starts at 7 o'clock, say it takes you 45 minutes to do this one. You're out there at 7:45, you're on the bike. It takes you 3 hours. So 10:45, then you start the run. Let's say it takes you an hour and a half or 2 hours. So 12:45, maybe 1 o'clock, you're done with the run. This one, we started at 9:40. I had a flat tire on the bike, so that kind of extended my time, but I got done around 2 o'clock. So you're in the heat of the day, and it was 93 degrees. The first loop was not that bad, but then coming on the second loop, looking across the lake, you could actually see like pockets of steam, and it was just hot. It was humid for Iowa. It was crazy. Personally, I totally messed up on my hydration on the bike, didn't think about it that much, and came on the second loop and pretty much had to walk the last 2 miles because I was either going to puke and pass out, or I had to walk in order to finish the race. But like I said, they had the full run, but just be careful. There are sections that are in shade. This little trail system right here, it's got some trees and lining, but I mean, if it's around noon, that sun's coming straight down, and there's not much shade going on. There's a little bit of shade in this section here, but once you're on this side of the lake, there's very little shade. I mean, you're exposed to the elements, and finally when you come back in here, there's a little bit of shade from the trees, and then you're back on Fleur Road, or Fleur Drive, and there's no place to hide. It is full sun. You're coming across this little bridge here. You come on the main roads, and then you get a little bit lucky because as you're running through here, the buildings start shading a little bit. When you get downtown, you've got enough shade from the buildings and stuff. But if it's hot, you need to prepare. There's some trees and shading here, so you get a little bit of a respite when you come out, especially from the transition. You start here and you come out and do your U-turn and come back. And then the teaser is you come in almost a block away from the finish line, turn around, do your U-turn, and then come back. It is nice. There's tons of spectators here, and it's a great spot to keep you energized when you come out and do the second run. But once you get away from this park, there's very little shade. You come out here and you get baked. You come out here, you're getting baked. And then you kind of turn back in here and you get a little respite. You get some trees, you get some shade. Every once in a while there's a little breeze, but for Iowa it was actually not that windy. It was a little crazy. But 2021, hopefully this is the outlier. I was hoping for a very cool, mild weather race, and I did not get that and did not plan for it accordingly, and I paid the price. Definitely need to relearn what I thought I'd learned in the past of staying hydrated, especially on the bike, but it got cut in half. Didn't really think about, didn't slam the hydration like I needed to, got my flat, got caught up in trying to speed up and everything. So had I not had the flat and been able to kind of manage my flat a little better, maybe I would have fared a little bit better myself. But my athletes did a pretty good job, so it's not, maybe it's just me messing this up. But overall, and I'm looking at some of the questions that people had, a lot of people were not necessarily happy with how far they had to go, because once you get out of let's go back to the swim course. Once you get out of the swim, you have to run on the pavement to get to transition. And it was probably 3/4 of a mile at most, and then you're running into this grass area, and if it rained the morning of, and actually it did not get as muddy as I thought it was going to. Now the little exit onto the street to get your bike out there and come back in, it was getting a little muddy, and as long as you're careful, it was okay. But this is where the big hiccup is. I mean, walking out to the swim start and doing the swim, and then walking and running back into transition. Overall, I don't think it's personally that big of a problem. I've done several races. I've done 2 transition 70.3s. I've done Indian Wells 70.3, where you have to take your wetsuit in the day before and have it dipped in bleach water to kill off any kind of creatures or anything, so it's not in the reservoir. You have to drive out there to do that, which it's kind of a 25-minute drive away from the original transition. Then you have to go back to the original transition, drop your stuff off. It logistically is a little bit of a pain in the butt because the swim start and T1 is different than T2, and you have to drop your T2 stuff off in your bag, and you had to be on your game for that as well. But it was nice because you get there at the end and all your stuff is in one place, but it took them forever to get everything back in there and sorted out. There was kind of chaos a little bit there. So I've been in that situation. When they had half here in Kansas, we had a 2 transition area where you rack your bike. It was like a mile walk from where you parked. That's just the way it was. Ironman Tulsa, it was kind of convenient. Everything kind of was one spot, but I Ironman Village was a little bit different area than the transition area, and finish line area is a little bit different. I mean, they're just little things here and there, and every race kind of has their little points. And I think about 70.3 Boulder. Pretty much everything is at the reservoir, which is convenient. And they have transition at the reservoir. They have Ironman Village at the reservoir. They fixed it so parking is not affected by the race, and the race is not allowed by parking. If you want a low-key, low-maintenance type of race, 70.3 Boulder is a great one. But 70.3 Des Moines, I mean, if you're local, if it's an easy race to get to, it's just like one of those things you're going to have to deal with. The bike course, had we gotten the full course, I think it was pretty, when I look at my elevation chart, and I think it's pretty accurate. Let's see if we can get the total climbing on here anywhere, and I'm not seeing it as I'm talking. Here we go. 881 feet of elevation gain. So I think overall it would have been crazy. I mean, they projected about 1,400. So, if we'd have doubled that course and got 1,600, people are averaging 20, 21 miles an hour. Now, maybe they wouldn't have got that for 56 miles, and it was not that windy. There's a little bit of headwind going out and a tailwind coming back in. I think the bike course would have been pretty good. Had to be able to have the whole course, but unfortunately it didn't, so I can't really talk about the whole course. But this little section right here, where we went out and back, that was pretty nice. It was paved roads. It was in pretty good condition. There were very few potholes. I don't know what I got a flat tire from. It wasn't from a bump or anything like that. It just kind of happened. The run course, it's nice. They close off the roads. There's no traffic. You're not dealing with cars, and that's kind of the same for the bike course. They had like a little path for like a residential area, but they put the bikers on one side and they had a little path for cars, and they tried to keep the cars out of your way. So I think I saw one instance where there's a car and kind of impeding the bike flow and the traffic for the race. For the run, completely shut down the roads. You don't have to worry about cars. You don't have to worry about anything like that. This is all paved trail. But just be prepared. It seemed like the aid stations, and maybe it was the heat or something like that, but man, some of those aid stations just seemed like so far apart. And, in reality, I think it was from 67, maybe it's a mile apart, but, oh, man, it was 93 degrees out there. I wish those aid stations were a little bit closer together to get some ice and water down on my head. But, overall, the run course, I mean, it wasn't wild. Let's see if I can find the elevation for that. And don't look at my time, because like I said, I got over dehydrated and had to walk the last 2 of the mile. Let's see, so elevation gain 1,100 feet on the run. Let's see if they have that on there on the map. So gain of 382. So something not quite jiving on that one, but so I mean, if you look at theirs, 382, it's really there's no this little section going over the bridge was like the steepest climb, and unfortunately it was like the full sun. There's no protection from it, so that was kind of a gut buster. But other than that, there's really no huge climbs or anything super technical or anything about this run. It was just kind of some mountain backs, paved trails. It did get a little bit tight here in this little trail since it's out and back, so you have to be a little bit careful. I did see one guy smack this poor girl in the face because he was rotating his arms, trying to get the blood flow to go to his hands or something, and just totally smacked her. That was interesting. So, be careful out there on the out and back. But overall, I think the spectators were great. They were everywhere in these little parks. There's plenty of little areas for spectators, finish line. I think that was great. But once you get to the finish line, you can go into Cowles Commons, and there's the food, and I think they're already breaking down the merchandise tent early for whatever reason. And they had a few vendors left and whatever, but it was pretty sparse at the finish line once you got out of the actual finish line area. Ironman Village, they were kind of, like I said, they were breaking it down, and I don't know, they were in a hurry to get out of it or something. But then they had buses to get you back to the transition area. I personally, being super dehydrated, feeling nauseous and horrible, it was better than walking, but it was what it was. I got back to transition and backed up my stuff and got home okay. But just be prepared. I mean, it was probably a 10-minute little hike to get back over here. So if you have spectators with you, they can park over here and then get you back there. That's fine. You're just be prepared that you're going to have to park over here. They can drop you off, like over here. They close down Fluor Road, so they're going to have to come around and drop you off or something, and go to your car. Blah blah blah. So just be prepared. There could be a little bit of walking and hiking after the race as well. Like I said, that's kind of I think, weather aside, if the weather would have been typical and normal for this time of year and we have not had a storm, I think it would have been a lot more comfortable out there to do the race. The logistics, like I said, most races, they're going to have logistics like this. I think they're just trying to go for the prestige of having it finish downtown. So it is what it is, having that finish line so far away from transition, and then transition being a little bit high from the swim exit. It was a nice, Grace Park, Grace Lake. This is a nice area, and I really couldn't complain about it. They, I think, just recently redone some parts of it and put an amphitheater in there. It was nice. It was well maintained. I really don't have any complaints about it. Midwest water is green and dirty brown, so whatever. I mean, I didn't get sick from the water, so I don't think many people did. But overall, I think this was a quality race, and I think the Ironman did a pretty good job, especially considering conditions. Personally, I think I heard a few times when they ran out of some water and ice at aid station, those volunteers were hopping. They had plenty of volunteers. They were energetic. They were trying the best they could to keep up with people. I mean, it was, once you got to this section and these little spots here, it was a war zone of paper cups and mess and people trying to keep cups full of ice and water as fast as possible. So I think they did the best they could with that forecast. Because you look at the forecast, it was like in the 70s. It's crazy. And then it got to 93 all of a sudden. Totally off base with AccuWeather, Weather.com. They were totally off. It was bizarre. So 2021 just seems like an off year as far as this stuff goes. So I would not take necessarily the experiences of 2021, but just know that there are some logistical things that you'll need to focus on. When I come back and do the race, it is a 3-hour drive for me. So that makes it very appealing. So, I mean, it's, and I feel like I need to come back and do a little bit better, and I would imagine hopefully in the next years it's not 93 degrees on June 20th. That's my hope. And so I'm personally going to go and probably do the race again. But, there's some people that are geared up, signed up, and ready to do it again. And some people are just like, no, that was such a hassle, I don't want to do it. Just be prepared, know what you're getting into. Know that there's going to be a little bit of coordination as far as checking in, dropping your bike off, parking and getting to and from the transition area, and parking getting to and from after the check-in, and parking getting to and from race start, and then the logistics of getting from the finish line, getting back to transition, all your stuff, and back to your car. It's a little bit of a process, so just be ready. Bring some Sherpas, bring some support crew, make them carry all your stuff, and at the end of the day, if I survived and being severely dehydrated, I think everybody else will do just fine. So that's kind of my over-level view. If you listen this far, if you got any questions, put them in the comments. I'd love to answer any other questions that anybody else may have, and hopefully this kind of help you out and maybe make a decision or not make a decision, or maybe you want to do some more investigating. So with that, happy training. If you got any questions, as always, let me know.